All right, so welcome to Conveyor Cast. Here from London, we have Ignacio Palomera from Bondex. He's going to be sharing his Web 2.5, not Web 3, not Web 2 platform that combines professional social networking with on-chain verifiability of users and their information. Thanks, Ignacio.
Thank you very much, Quinn. Great to be here. So yes, we've been working on this for a long time. My background is in finance. I went down the rabbit hole of Web3 in 2017 as I was doing some due diligence for the venture side of the big investment bank I was working for. I discovered crypto. I went down the rabbit hole. I came out of this other side of Builder, and I joined the company as the first employee that was all about stuff augmentation, and it was meant to be a freelancer marketplace on chain. We pivoted throughout that bear market into an algo we developed to match candidates with opportunities filtering. This may not sound too revolutionary now in the world we live in now, in which AI and LLMs are abound. But 10 years ago, this was actually quite the novelty and really the beginning and the scratching of the surface of it. And throughout my experience there, I just learned about the inefficiency of the labor market, how we find jobs, and like the different parts of the marketplace, right? The candidate, the company, as well as the recruiter and the middleman, like actually making that matchmaking. And my conclusion was that everyone was getting screwed. What is the killer use case of Web3 to it? It's actually coordination and incentive alignment. And if that done together correctly, can result in a peer-to-peer exchange of labor. Now, this has evolved a lot over time, not just because we've had a mobile application with millions of users and a job portal with a lot of large enterprise clients in Web3 for now a few years in the market and a lot of learning. But I think the industry has evolved, and also technology space has evolved over time. And so my conclusions and thesis have been, just because something is decentralized does not mean it's going to displace Web2 social networks, right? We started out with this vision of LinkedIn killer. No, that's not going to happen. That's not how we should think about it. What is a real problem solution that blockchain can be applied to? Well, I think we're full of noise. What I mean by that is I am overwhelmed by the amount of data that I get as a Web3 builder and entrepreneur. Managing my team, my personal life between WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, email, Twitter. I'm bombarded with all this information. And it's hard for me to know who to trust, what to pay attention to. And I think blockchain can, one, be used to aggregate and bridge all of these Web2 and Web3 components into kind of one passport that we called a reputation score and identity. And the idea is that it will help you navigate the internet throughout all this noise. And that's kind of the entering story. But let me just walk you through the app a little bit and what we've built and what's out there in the wild already. We started with a very gamified engine that's basically just gamified LinkedIn. So it's got a currency, it's an Onchain currency, premium currency, like a video game. And the idea is that your reputation is your currency, and you earn it the more you build your network and the more you build your professional identity, right? And then you earn points. You use those points to advance your career or access economic opportunities. And the big aspect of this that we're using blockchain for is verifications. We're using a CK Oracle to verify certain aspects to assign your reputation score so that you can go through different levels and be trusted. I think that, again, today we've neglected to solve for trust. We're at the peak of the attention economy and we're all exhausted. I think we need to go towards a trust and authenticity economy. And knowing, this whole privacy thing in Web3 is really all well and good, but really what we've ended up with is scams, fraud, and just a lack of trust and noise, and just overwhelming noise. So that's what we're trying to fix. So you build your reputation scores through different categories. One of them is the identity and verification. Are you a real human? KYC, Gitcoin passport, WorldCoin coming soon. We integrate to a bunch of different things. Then your professional side, right? We started it as a talent platform, and we still are. So, and throughout the stations, which is a link between Web 2 and Web 3 data, we can verify things like you connect your LinkedIn account, privacy first through a CK Oracle. So, hey, this is your account. This is how many connections do you have? It's actually yours. And we assign some reputation points to that. Then your blockchain data. Again, no one can see your wallet. No one can see this is your wallet. We just say certain characteristics of your wallet, right? Like how many transactions do you are you active? Or, that kind of proves you're a digit. That gives me a signal that you are Web3 native. And that gives you reputation points in that area, right? And lastly, your Web2 socials, aggregating and bridging everywhere you already hang out on the internet. So Twitter, Telegram, Farcaster, Discord. And
wow. Okay, so you're aggregating profiles on other platforms and using a verification of those those pseudonymous profiles of someone in the real world to basically add them up and make it more provable that you are that person, that you have done or participated in those things. Like, as you just showed, you have 3,000 plus followers, or you've committed these many commits to Gitcoin or GitHub, perhaps. And it's not necessarily, it's a little different from the blue sky approach, right? Where it's a interoperable software, I think, in the background, or that this is what it sounds like to me.
Let me keep taking you down the journey.
Okay.
So actually, it all ties in together, but there's three aspects to it, which I would say is the reputation score, the ID, and the profile, which is connected to a wallet. All of it together kind of represents this universal profile that you can think of as a passport for the internet that allows you not just to get into different countries, different apps, different things, but it allows you to actually build your reputation based on the engagement and contributions that you do across the internet, and then collect them and then keep building your reputation. Essentially, the evolution of a resume or a LinkedIn profile into a dynamic identity for the internet that has on-chain and off-chain components. Very complicated, a lot of buzzwords, but it is what it is. But let me show you how it works. So you actually just you import your LinkedIn account. So you come in, you do your API, you log in with your LinkedIn, and it auto-populates your profile for you. And the typical thing: education, experience. But then it's got some Web3 native sections, right? POAPs, NFTs, and that connects back to your wallet, right? But what I showed you before about the reputation score is that I can see what you verified. This is actually me. Where we're turning the head of the spin is that if we don't know each other and we don't have the same reputation score, we're not at the same level, maybe I have to pay you $2 in order to send you a DM. So no more spam, no more noise. The monetization of your network, the monetization of your data in your hands, empowered to you as a user.
Wow. As someone who's been in Web3 for quite a while, and I know exactly what you mean by Web 2.5 right now. This makes a lot of sense, because you're using a lot of let's say in the background verification tools that folks are used to, but it's not the core of what this product does. The core is very similar to a lot of Web 2 technologies. It just is a lot stronger, and I think it does point to. So what are my theses about communications online is that we are inundated with attention. So what the implication of that is that we're going to have to work hard to be trusted, even with our closest relationships. And so in order to connect with someone who is arm's length or a stranger, you're going to have to find ways to connect with them and prove the credibility of yourself. And I've spent some time thinking about identity and sort of online identity. You know, there's some very old projects that went down this road that I was first familiar with, like Civic. Civic was an original sort of identity. There's WorldCoin, which Sam Altman is doing too. There's interoperable social graphs like Blue Sky and what Jack Dorsey's doing. But what, in a simple way, what I've suggested to the people that I work with is you should be regularly connecting with your core followers. Like if you are not sending emails to your employees, or if you are not talking to your investors, you should be doing whatever it takes to create a rhythm, a routine to connect with these people. And then I also think that you should be coming up with ways to enable your network growth. This is coming back to what you're showing me. So you need to be coming up with ways. You need to be incentivizing your circle, your close network, to introduce you to people. And it's through their credibility of knowing you and knowing them that you are able to expand your professional network to achieve your goals. But what your system does is it is that sort of bridge between stranger to stranger.
It just it provides a trust layer as an infrastructure, so that you know that someone's real and they're, which is obviously, you know, I think most of internet traffic now is bots. So this is becoming increasingly a problem, right? But it's very interesting what you just said. And I think that, you know, it just came out on the news that Mark Zuckerberg had suggested at one point making people start over with Facebook with their friends and start a social graph. And I have an answer for that. And it's because we have all these social networks, and depending on your age bracket and demographic, you might use one or another. However, we've significantly diluted our social graphs or our social networks of who we know dramatically, depending on each social network. For example, me, I'm very guarded about who I accept on Instagram. However, on LinkedIn, I've opened the floodgates. What has that ended up with? When someone tells me, "Hey, can you introduce me to so and so because I see you're connected in LinkedIn?" and I my answer a lot of times is, "Oh, sorry, I don't know him. We just connected on LinkedIn," meaning I don't know him at all.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really broken down. And so I think that where blockchain and Web3 comes and the incentivization and coordination comes in interesting place. Once you have your trust reputation score on Bondex, we're working on something that we call vouching. So the idea is that, Quinn, I have 10 vouchers a year. They're rare, right? But if I endorse you in a certain category and you end up monetizing on the network in an economic opportunity through the social capital because I've recommended you, then I will get a little revenue share from it. That's how we're getting around it.
I think that's a great. I think being able to verify your social graph in a professional way is a really interesting opportunity. I don't know to what degree. Still sharing. There we go. So how expanding your view from Bondex, how deep have you gone into on-chain communities, things like DAOs, social clubs, things like that? And what do you think digitally enabled communities are, what's the current state of those things?
I think crypto has tapped into a lot of the reasons why people hang out on the internet to begin with. And I think gamers were the first ones there, right? Which is a sense of tribe. There's a loneliness epidemic at the end of the day, right? And people want a tribe. People want to be entertained. And in the case of also people that are in crypto, they also want to make money, right? And these are all the components of the reasons that people want to be part of these communities. However, I think fully decentralized DAOs haven't quite worked, because governance in a completely decentralized way doesn't work unless it's something like Bitcoin, where it's just like, it's money, right? When it comes to governance, like, you do need some sort of leadership, and you do need some sort of negative and positive incentives to run an organization. So I don't believe in full decentralization of everything. I don't believe that's right. I don't believe that everyone, because you end up with a lot of apathy. I think DAOs have, for the most part, not worked out. They become hot, they become long. It's same argument can be made for memes in a way, right? Communities get hot, which is sad. At the end of the day, crypto has become this kind of big casino, and I'm against that. And that's what I was talking about it again. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the conversation, which is, we're at the height of the peak. We're at the peak of the attention economy. I think the launch of Trump coin was like the height of it. Now I look at my X, I look at my YouTube. I'm trying to. As of this week, I stopped looking at the news, because I'm like, whoa, I don't even know. Like, I don't even know what the hell. So when it comes to communities, I think that it's not an issue of the overabundance of data. I think it's just about responsibility and incentives. And sometimes people make a lot of money, and then they no longer have an incentive to keep it going and keep it running, right? And I think, sorry, I'm going down the
Yeah, no worries. What I'm hearing you say is that DAOs need, and yeah, like the most efficient organization, unfortunately, is one where there's a dictator, right? And so someone who is the sole incentivized person to drive it forward. The only downside is buy-in and commitment from the remainder of the community. But like any sort of, Bitcoin is relatively inefficient, but it's decentralized, and that's where its power comes from. There are cartel-like or supernode-like blockchains, or even private blockchains, looking at the past there, and they're centralized, and they're extremely efficient. Their transaction costs are next to nothing, but there's something more that's missing. So there's a bit of a balance, I think, when it comes to community focus, less to do with an exchange of value and more an exchange of digital information, I would say, which probably has value, but not hard value like in the form of Bitcoin. And so another feature of the internet is that things are clonable. So you can there's unlimited optionality for the most part. And so as long as the feeling of your community is good, things can continue on. But because of this optionality, this clonability, as soon as there's any friction, people will just generally choose to go and do something else. And that's usually how communities work. I think your analogy of memes are apt, because they are supposed to have high depreciation, because otherwise it's not interesting anymore.
But that's the issue. It's like everyone's too short-term minded. Everyone's looking for a quick buck. This behavior has affected, in my way, everyone in the wrong way. Everyone's now addicted to gambling and the short-term hit, and all it's ended up with is memes are a hyper predatory casino where 99% of people lose value, right? Like the slots in Vegas have a 75% loss ratio, and it's all based on attention, and I'm tired of it. And I think it's more about authenticity. And you see it from like digital world to in real life. Like I see a lot of events going from the mega music festival to the intimate wellness curated. People are looking and yearning for more meaningful connections to each other in a more authentic way. And I think we haven't really cracked it yet. And the reason that you're saying is like, we have all these fragmented communities across crypto because they just look for the next incentive and they move on the moment that something cracks. They have no loyalty beyond incentives, right? attention. Attention is not a sustainable reason to be somewhere or to be entertained. Those are fickle things. You're loyal to something when you've had to invest effort into something. And so you end up having just very few people in communities that are actually that loyal to it. So I think just things are broken overall. That's why I'm building a new type of social network in which you invest into your identity, you invest into your network, but you're going to be able to monetize it and benefit from it yourself. And I think that creates, and then you get a revenue share from it, right? And I think that creates a loyalty group, an incentive, and a much stronger bond to the relationship to a product that we've seen before. And it's not about community, it's about getting really kind of also like stakeholders in the form of you own the token, you use the product, and then you get a revenue share. I don't want to really crack the flywheel completely on it between all the stakeholders in a project, but I just think it's time for like just less speculation and more like actual product market fit, and then stakeholder incentive alignment.
Do you have any? So you're painting a pretty.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Can you edit this after? Is that all right?
Yeah. Yeah. No worries.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. So I've had my agency for 4 years. I've started as a ghostwriter. I publish content for business leaders. I run newsletters. I help run events. So I'm contributing to some of the noise that is out there, right? I'm putting content out there. For me, for business leaders and entrepreneurs who need to engage and communicate to their audience, who need to like sell with their expertise, develop thought leadership, what is your approach? How do you do it from your vantage point, and what do you recommend to your network?
By the way, I doubt, Quinn, from the little time that I've known you, that you're contributing to the noise, because I'm suspicious that the content that you put out there is high quality, and that's not what I refer to as noise. Noise, I just refer to the collective overabundance of data that we're bombarded with. So it's hard to pick what to pay attention to and what's true and what's not, and we're having a difficult time navigating it, right? And I think because the incentives have been attention driven, they've been the wrong ones, and it's more about authenticity. What is my recommendation? And we're building a lot of these things out at Bondex, right? In the way that we're thinking about it. I've already shown you guys kind of how we're thinking about it. It's like, this is who you are and your persona as a public person. Verify what you claim on chain, because we've just started with a few things. We're going to do proof of work, proof of grid, proof of collaboration, and then we're going to integrate the social proof from your network vouching for you on certain things. And once you have all of this and you have a certain reputation score, then you'll be able to post things online, and your credibility score will be built over time, and you can track it all as the engagement with your content is positive or negative, etc. Right? And then secondly is that the way that we're thinking about feeds, social feeds, for example, is aggregate and bridge. Did you know that there was a company called Friendster that Facebook purchased? They were actually the ones that invented the like button.
Yes.
And they used to aggregate your feeds across social networks.
Okay.
So they bought that and they shut that down, right? So let's say that you and me connect on Bondex, and you verify and connect your Twitter account and your YouTube and wherever you are putting your content on, right? So that's on one side. So if we connect, I'll have access to an aggregated bridge feed of what you are putting out there. And then on the other hand, which I find quite interesting, is that I should also have a say in what I want on my feed, depending on the time. So I should have some like levers that say, now I want to be looking at political news or crypto subject by X experts with X amount of credit rating, reputation rating, right? I'm talking about just empowering users more and more, aggregation, bridging, trust layer, and then the power to the user to enable their optionality more.
And how are you developing your team, and how have you sort of sold this vision? Tell me about how you formed the company, who you rely on behind the scenes.
We've been building since 2021. We've gone through many iterations of the team. I think that we didn't really have very much money at all until we did a coinless race in 2024, and then we had a big budget, and that was kind of our Series A and our moment of like, whoa, now we have like an actual budget. The way you start and bootstrap a company is like, without resources, it's just like, cheap MVP traction, and you get to the next milestone, and you try to get to the next level of it. And I think ultimately you need to find, and also the way that talent is structured and compensated and available around the world today is, you have mercenaries and missionaries, and your exec team, who's going to be highly incentivized and have the biggest piece of the pies. Those have to be your Navy SEALs that you go out there and they drink the same Kool-Aid as you, and they're missionaries and they understand your vision. And that's actually a tight-knit group of people, especially in the stage or early stage company that I am at. And then the wider company is more mercenary, and the level of quality there is going to be just down to whatever you can afford at the stage that you're at. And over time, you want to elevate it. But it all comes from the center. So when you have no resources, there's other people out there with no resources like you, but that are missionaries, and that you can sell them on your vision. They're going to contribute to your vision, and together you can arm this little band of people that are going to go make something special happen in a company. But what I mean is, and especially with AI now and agents, like, just startups are going to get much leaner and smaller, and it's going to be more and more important to have like this kind of elite group of people that run the organization, and then ultimately, the next layer or circle to the organization is going to be a little bit more mercenary, come and go, quality of talent depending on price, opportunistic, etc., scaling it up and down. I believe that's how the future of working companies structures are. I'm not sure if I've answered the question.
You did, yeah. So you really focus on shoring up your core and making sure that you have folks who've got your back and are going to fight through thick and thin. Aren't as you said, they're not fly by night, I think. And then you just have a reality of the doers. You have the doers, I think, as you said, the mercenaries, and you're just leveling up that team, growing them, finding people that can improve or the quality of those mercenaries once you probably have product market fit or have very repeatable or important jobs to be done that you need focused on. And so how do you engage with this? It's funny, it's like it's not quite B2B, but it's B2C, it's B2P, business to professional is your customer segment, I would say. So how do you communicate and keep engaged and avoid apathy with your users on the Bondex platform?
It's a very nuanced question, because we've gone through many iterations, and I'll go back to something else, which is again the playbook. The playbook of the gatekeepers of the industry in Web3, which was exchanges and VCs, was attention, hype, and vibes, and that will drive up volume to trading a token. And so then you should do airdrops, and then community, blah blah. And what has that led to? A bunch of noise, a bunch of people that don't give a crap. No one achieving PMF, because people just come in, They don't actually have a product that's good enough, and then they move on. And now they've all changed their tune to, oh, why don't we build actual products that solve real problems instead of just hype and vibes, and then we put a token on it once we have a sustainable business model. This is a shift that just happened, which means that if you're a new company doing in this space and building in that more traditional venture way, you're in a good spot because you're starting with a clean slate. If you've been building with the 5 years on this attention addiction playbook that they've handed from the top down to us, you're in trouble. Admittedly, we were on that playbook and we've had to shift, and it's been freaking difficult. Very, 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 very difficult. Because that's what people were paying attention to, and the gatekeepers, right? The exchanges, the VCs. What does your Twitter look like? What is engagement? What are your followers? What are your community? Community first. The external network effects, NFX, and the external network effects are very important in crypto because you need to get the community first and then a product. And now they're all like, it's been 10 years. What has achieved product market fit? Bitcoin to store money, stable coins to send each other money, and pure speculation and casino. We don't have a single consumer app. We haven't achieved an email moment that onboards 1 billion people onto blockchain. Maybe the attention-seeking external network effects community first thing was wrong because it's all fickle.
It's really funny. I remember going back to 2017, and I worked for a non-custodial wallet. I worked for the Jax wallet. If you heard of that back in the day, and we were getting token integrations, new coin integrations. And the way that I would go and find new projects to work with is by jumping into the Telegram channels and just finding community managers, elevating it up. And this was early Telegram. And it's remarkable. You bring up a really interesting point because, as you know, my company, it's called Community and Company. So it's all about, it takes a village to raise a startup. You have to lead from the front, but do it in a humble way. And in crypto, there is a catch-22 where there's all these vanity metrics that people use as first impressions around number of Telegram followers, number of, mentions, things like that. And the amount of developers that are in this community that use bots to gamify that, and you can't tell what's real from fiction. And so I've never really applied that thinking to the way that I coach people on their communications, because I want people to use thought leadership to expand. But my biggest premise, and I'm from Canada, you're in London there, we're slightly different from, let's say, our American counterparts, where Canadians in a business context, we're very product driven. We believe the product will sell itself. And so statistically, we hire sales later, we invest in marketing later. And so we have these amazing innovations, things like BlackBerry, but we don't capture the minds of the market or even respect the market as much as it needs to be respected in order for it to kind of pull the product into the future, usually. And so my pitch is typically around, you need to develop thought leadership because you are a skilled subject matter expert that delivers good products and services, and you need to use your subject matter expertise to tell more people about you. But on the flip side, on the other side, as you are painting this picture in Web3, you have to be careful of overdoing the vanity metrics, and you have to bring it back to what your objectives are ultimately.
100%. And sorry, I need to take one more break. I'm sorry, it's something going on here. Give me 1 minute.
No worries.
So in terms of founder-led communication, I think we're living in a clearly founders now have to need to lead the brand from the front, right? And you've seen this work so effectively with Elon Musk, and like you see the rebrand of Mark Zuckerberg and all that stuff, right? And now people kind of have a brand and a company to it. And so thought leadership is super important. Now I've seen a lot of founders in earlier stages using ghostwriters and using things, and it lacks authenticity. And I did this. All right, I had someone delegate to my Twitter to go post things like that, and then someone pointed it out to me. It's like, dude, this is not you. People can tell. And so, even if it's taking a little bit of time out of your day, I think that it's okay to have a ghostwriter that goes like that you're very in sync with, and like post things in a more automated way about your company, about your views and blah blah. But you still need to do the work yourself of going in there and having a real honest stream of consciousness and realness on your Twitter or whatever channel it is as a founder that you communicate on, that you're like, hey, these are my views on this and that, and this is what I think. And ultimately, as entrepreneurs, like we need to pay it forward, because we're all here incurring so much pain and suffering as we build companies, that I think we're always happy to share advice and our experiences to help each other, right? And I think there's a healthy mix between the ghostwriting, the positioning, but also just honesty, and investing some of your time into giving your honest opinions about things.
Yeah, I think that that's really good. That's a really good recommendation. And you think so where do you put that on the level of importance of something that, like, do you think that most founders need to be doing that, or do you think that only in some cases?
I think it's completely contextual to the company and product. B2B, probably not, right? It's who your end consumer is and who you're speaking to. If it's consumer, absolutely, right? I think it's contextual to what the company and product and service is and who the audience to it is. Then it matters more or less.
I would agree with you. I do think that one thing that's really important is figuring out what's holding back the person from publishing, and the ghostwriter or the team behind it should be trying to unlock the missing pieces rather than taking over that task. It's not about taking over the task. It's about providing accountability, consistency, contributing to quality, higher quality to a degree, that type of thing.
Absolutely. And like for me as a CEO, for example, like sometimes I just don't have time and they have to pin me down to do something. So like if I had a ghostwriter, at the end of the day, we should just have 1 hour in which we chat about subjects, and she asks me questions and almost interviews me, and I give her views about things, and then she grabs that content and then makes it into useful content that they published on my channels. That would be a good model for it, for example. But it requires, again, that effort, and I think that would be a good symbiosis of or partnership between the ghostwriting, instead of just them publishing things without even talking to you and automating things about the company, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, once a week we sit for an hour, and you have to be very in sync with what's going on with the company, with the markets, with the trends, blah, blah.
Voice too, your voice as well.
And my voice, and ask me questions and I answer them, and she grabs snippets, and then that creates the catalog of content as a founder going forward for your channels.
What channels are you on at the moment?
I am on Telegram, which I just go into my community and firefight and try to be front-facing there. But mostly Twitter. Twitter is like my founder, kind of like where I go do it. And I still don't have the hang of it. I'm really bad at it. I need to master it. I'm sure, Quinn, I can get a lot of lessons from you on how to properly use it and leverage it and do founder-led thought leadership.
Twitter is a beast. Yes, you have to be able to jump into it, and you have to make it a bit of a priority for a while before it becomes natural, I think. But like you said, attention is at a premium, and even those sort of microblogging sites, those microblogging social platforms like Twitter, that's starting to bifurcate too. There's Mastodon, there's Farcaster, there's Twitter, there's Blue Sky.
Everything's so fragmented. And look, every VC guy in the world after All In Podcast is starting their own podcast. So like we just have such an overabundance of data and content now. I think the question is, how do we navigate it all? How do we curate it properly when we have all these siloed, segregated channels? Like
AI, because of all the data we're creating most recently, AI is going to think that we've been podcasting for 1,000 years. That's what's going to happen. All of their research is going to be about the BS that we talk about right now.
Well, but this curation and algorithms that put the content in front of you, it's what I'm trying to work on, as again using blockchain as a trust layer for reputation, and then empowering the user to choose the type of content that they want in front of them, right? Versus the other way around. Otherwise, we're just letting the algorithms program us. And I see it, right? Like the moment that someone sends you a post about something on like a Twitter or Instagram, then the next post that you're seeing are about that subject. So sometimes almost if someone sends me a link to something and it's something that they find funny and I don't find funny, it's like, crap, you just messed my algorithm. And now I'm going to have to look at this stuff until they realize that I'm ignoring it. So will AI help us in navigating all of this better? I don't know. Remains to be seen.
It probably will, but it probably will introduce something else.
That's right.
So Ignacio, thank you so much for the chat. Great to hear about Bondex, social, Web3, founder-led communications. We touched on it all, things close to my heart. And yeah, see you hopefully in London. But Consensus is in Toronto in a month. If you're welcome to come join.
Sadly, I won't be there. I'll be in Dubai talking to you for now. But Quinn, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me, and have a great day.